I was sitting in my doctor's waiting room when my phone buzzed. It was my only child, Angela. Her voice sounded off. Cool, distant. Mom, we're flying to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your truck. We needed the cash. Bye. Then the line went dead. 45 years of raising her, giving up pieces of myself for her. And just like that, she tossed me out of her life. I inhaled slowly, set the phone in my lap, and oddly, felt a smile tug at my lips. Because there was one thing my daughter didn't know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71. Until that phone call, I thought I knew my daughter. My husband, Robert, died 6 months earlier. Collapsed from a heart attack while we were having breakfast. The same ritual we'd kept for 45 years. He'd poured my coffee with cream, set a slice of toast in front of me, kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those words were the last ones I ever heard from him. After he passed, it seemed like Angela stepped up. She came by 3 times a week. She helped with the funeral, came along to the grocery store, even urged me to get a checkup. "Mom, you have to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say with a smile I mistook for tenderness. Now I knew better. It was strategy. The beach house was our refuge. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15. Years of saving, scraping, and determination. We celebrated summers there, birthdays, Christmas dinners. Angela brought boyfriends, then her husband, Edward. I'd cook, scrub, and do the laundry. Family felt like something we built in that house. I never imagined she'd reduce it to a line item. And the truck, Robert's old Ford, he babied that thing, washed it every Sunday, changed the oil early, parked it under the tree's shade in the same spot for decades. Angela knew how much it meant to me. His cologne still clung to the seats. That truck was the last everyday piece of him I could touch. When she hung up, I stayed on that stiff green chair, surrounded by coughing and rustling magazines. But I didn't cry. Not this time. Something shifted inside me, a kind of steady calm I hadn't felt since Robert died. Because I suddenly remembered something I'd locked away. 3 days before he passed, Robert handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia, tuck this in your dresser drawer. If anything happens to me, open it after a while, only when you feel ready." I slid it away and forgot it in the fog of funeral homes and casseroles and paperwork. The nurse called my name. The doctor said I was doing well for my age. "Rest a little more, eat a little better," he advised. I nodded, but my mind had already left the exam room. It was at home, in my dresser, on a forgotten envelope, and on my daughter's icy voice. I left the office and shuffled to the bus stop. No truck for me anymore, according to Angela. As I waited, I felt an odd sense of poetry in all of it. She thought she'd stripped me of everything. She had no idea who Robert really was. I took my usual seat by the window and watched the city slide past. People hustling, storefronts blinking, homes radiating the quiet drama of normal life. Everyone had their own secret story. I had mine too, and I was about to open it. At home, I went straight to my room, pulled open the dresser, and there it was. The manila envelope, right where I'd left it. My hands shook a little as I picked it up. I could feel multiple documents inside. My name sat on the front in Robert's neat pen strokes. I sat on our bed and inhaled. The house was falling into that soft evening dim, full of familiar shadows that no longer frightened me. I lifted the flap and slid everything out as carefully as if I were opening a birthday gift. What I found inside changed everything. There were deeds, corporate papers, bank certifications, and a letter in Robert's unmistakable handwriting. "My dearest Antonia, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there to say it to your face. I'm sorry I kept things from you, but I wanted to spare you worry. Over many years, I invested our savings in real estate and businesses. We don't just have the beach house. We have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. We also own significant shares in 3 companies. You are wealthier than you think, my love. You always were. Now it's documented too. My fingers trembled as I sifted through the pages. Titles to homes in different neighborhoods, a downtown condo, a small motel near the coast, and yes, the 20-story apartment building where my daughter lived. Robert had been the quiet owner for a decade, holding everything in a company I'd never heard of. According to the filings, I was the sole heir to that company. There were bank statements from accounts I hadn't known existed, numbers that didn't feel real. My bus driver husband of 40 years had been a quiet financial genius. Every dollar we saved, he multiplied, and I'd never had a clue. In the letter, he explained his secrecy. He didn't want money to change how Angela treated us. You know our girl, Antonia. If she knew, she'd act differently. I want her to love us for who we are, not what we own. The irony was brutal. She walked away thinking I had nothing, when in truth, we had everything. I paced the house that night, tracing the contours of old furniture Angela had called outdated. I stood in front of the family photos, especially the one where she's 5, laughing in Robert's lap. Where did that little girl go? In the morning, the phone rang. Angela. Her voice was suddenly gentle, and I knew enough to be cautious. In the morning, the phone rang. Angela. Her voice was suddenly gentle, and I knew enough to be cautious. Mom, how are you? We transferred the money from the house and the truck. We deposited your share into your account. It's not a lot, but it'll carry you for a few months while you look for a smaller place. My share? I kept my tone even. Yes, Mom, we'd never leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? We need the rest for a big opportunity in Europe. Edward has a can't-miss deal. 30% of my own things. How generous, I thought. When do you leave? This afternoon. We'll be gone at least 6 months, maybe longer if it works out. Don't worry, we'll help you find a place that fits your needs when we get back. Fits my needs. As if she had the slightest idea. Okay, Angela, I said softly. Safe travels. Oh, Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. Love you. When the line clicked off, I stood with the receiver in my hand and I laughed. A bright, clean laugh I hadn't managed since Robert's funeral. The whole thing was absurd enough to be a bad sitcom. My daughter had robbed me, shoved me aside, and dripped condensation over me like I was a stray. Not to build a life, just to fund a fantasy with a man who couldn't manage his own wallet. And what hurt wasn't the money. It was how easy it was for her to discard me. I checked my account. Sure enough, they dropped in an amount that might have looked generous to them. To me, it screamed insult. They'd fire-sold the beach house and all but gave away Robert's truck. That afternoon, I watched from the kitchen window as Angela and Edward loaded suitcases into a cab, 2 giant bags for him, a designer carry-on for her. They kissed and giggled and planned. Neither looked up at my window. No wave. No goodbye. I brewed tea and spread Robert's documents across the table. Decisions needed making. I could go scorched earth with the lawsuit, reclaim everything publicly, and press charges. But that wasn't the path I wanted. There was a more instructive way to handle this. I called Mr. Peterson, the attorney who had handled Robert's pension and paperwork. He'd come to the funeral, pressed my hand, told me I could call anytime. I dialed. Mrs. Brooks, he said warmly. How are you holding up? I'm all right, Mr. Peterson. I need to see you. I found documents of Robert's that I need help understanding. Of course. Tomorrow morning. Yes. For the first night in months, I slept deeply. I dreamed of Robert in his favorite chair, rustling the newspaper and smiling at me. About time, my love, he said. About time you stood up for yourself. In the morning, I pulled on the wine-colored dress Robert loved. I did my hair and a touch of makeup. The woman in the mirror looked like someone I hadn't seen in ages. Someone strong. Mr. Peterson's building was old and dignified. Marble floors, tall windows. He greeted me kindly. But when I laid the papers out on his desk, his face shifted. Mrs. Brooks, this is far more substantial than I expected. Your husband was extremely savvy. According to these, you own... I've read through them, I said. What matters now is what I can do. Legally. He confirmed what I suspected. Everything was in order. I was the rightful owner of it all. And the beach house sale? Completely unlawful. Angela had no authority to sell it. We can unwind the transaction immediately, he said, and we can bring a fraud action against your daughter. No, I cut in. No court cases.
Not yet. I want a different approach, and I need absolute discretion. He studied me for a beat, then nodded. You're my client. What do you need me to do? Quietly reverse the beach house sale. Move control of the properties into my hands, especially the building where Angela lives. And I want my involvement kept out of sight for now. It will take a few weeks, but it's all doable. Perfect, I said. The next few weeks were surreal. Officially, I was the broke widow everyone pitied. In reality, I was a wealthy woman quietly gathering the threads of her estate. Mr. Peterson worked quickly and kept me updated every few days. I stayed in my home. It was still mine after all, even if Angela assumed I downsized to a single room. Mornings looked ordinary again. Quiet breakfasts, a stroll around the block. Neighbors offered sympathy in the careful, cotton-soft tone people use with the newly bereaved. One afternoon, Aurora, my neighbor and old friend, called across the fence while I watered my geraniums. Antonia, is it true Angela went off to Europe and left you here alone? Yes, I said. She went with Edward. Business plans, so she says. How are you going to manage, honey? Everyone knows Robert didn't leave much. If only you knew, I thought. I'll be fine, Aurora. Do you need anything? I can bring a casserole or take you to the store. You're kind. I'm all right. The butcher, the baker, the lady behind the corner store counter, everyone had a version of the same conversation with me. I smiled and thanked them and played the part. A small part of me even enjoyed the oddness of it all, like acting in a play where I knew the twist ending. Midweek, Mr. Peterson called. Good news, we voided the beach house sale. The buyers were innocent, they've been refunded. The title is back in your name. Excellent, I said. And the building? That's taking longer. You've always owned it through the company, but we're making some administrative changes so you can exercise control directly. 2 more weeks. Keep me posted. I decided to take the bus to the coast to see the house. The route Robert and I had driven 100 times. The cottage still wore its cream paint with the porch facing the water. The brief new owners had added potted plants on the steps, but otherwise it felt unchanged. I sat across the street and stared for an hour, letting summers come back. Angela as a kid building sandcastles, Robert working the grill while I tossed salads in the kitchen. Then came the years of boyfriends, then Edward. So many happy memories she'd turned into pocket money. An older gentleman stepped out and spotted me sitting there. He approached, polite concern on his face. Ma'am, are you all right? Yes, I said softly, just remembering. I knew the old owners. What a shame about the situation. We were told the elderly lady was very ill, needed to sell fast. It seemed like a bargain, but it wasn't a legal sale. We had to give it back. Did you meet them? I asked. No, we dealt through intermediaries. The daughter handled it because the mother was supposedly not well. Sad, really. Very, I said, and left with a heavy heart. The money wasn't what stung. It was the story my daughter told about me. Weak, sick, helpless. She turned me into a prop to justify pushing me aside. That night I called Mr. Peterson again. I want Robert's truck back too. That's trickier, he said. The truck was titled to you, but your daughter had a power of attorney. She sold it legitimately. How could she have had that? You signed it after Robert died, do you recall? You believed it was to handle funeral and probate. There it was, the moment she started the setup. I vaguely remembered her sliding forms in front of me, telling me it was just to make tasks simpler. I signed through tears. Is there any way to undo it? We can try. If we can show you were misled or manipulated, do it, please. I want everything back. Afternoons, I became a student. I learned how the properties were leveraged and how Robert had structured everything. He wasn't just collecting rent, he'd picked neighborhoods on the rise. I learned Edward had layered debts on top of debts, using the apartment as collateral, an apartment he didn't actually own. When the banks connected the dots, I knew the fallout would be ugly. On Friday, Mr. Peterson called again. All paperwork completed. You now have full control of your holdings. And I tracked down the truck. Funny enough, the buyer is someone I know.
Once I explained, he agreed to return it for a small fee. Splendid, I replied. One more request. Send a letter to my daughter. What kind of letter? An eviction notice. Silence. Mrs. Brooks, are you sure? I am. She decided I was disposable. Now she'll learn how much say I actually have. Shall I send it to her in Europe? No. Deliver it when she gets back, and I have a feeling she'll be back sooner than she planned. I wasn't wrong. Aurora burst into my kitchen that afternoon with gossip still warm from the oven. Antonia, Edward is in hot water at the bank. My brother-in-law says they're digging into loans he took out using their apartment as collateral. But the apartment isn't his. Sounds like Angela had no idea. People are saying she's flying home to deal with the mess. Is that so? I asked, stirring my tea. Also hearing there was never any business in Europe. He just wanted to outrun what he owed. Interesting, I said, feeling a click of gears falling into place. The night air felt gentler on the porch. I looked up at the stars Robert used to say housed the souls of people who lived full lives. Thank you, I whispered, for taking care of me even now. Early the next morning, Mr. Peterson called. Your daughter just landed. Alone. Alone? Word is she and Edward had a major fight. He stayed behind. I see. Did you send the letter? It's going out today. 30 days to vacate. Perfect. That evening, Aurora came again with an update. Saw Angela arrive last night with one suitcase. She looked awful. White as a sheet. Eyes swollen. Like she cried all the way home. The doorman had to let her in with the emergency key. She didn't even have her keys. By the next afternoon, Mr. Peterson called to say the notice had been delivered. The doorman confirmed she took it in hand. Are you certain you want to do this? He asked again. She's your daughter. She called me from a doctor's office to tell me she'd sold my things and that I should make myself small. She can live with the consequences of her choices. I understand, he said. I couldn't sleep that night. I pictured the moment she unfolded the letter. Confusion, disbelief, then panic. She'd think it was a scam. She'd call around, and then she'd realize it was ironclad. At 8 a.m., the phone rang. Angela. Her voice was shredded by worry. Mom, I need to see you. Right now. Good morning, sweetheart, I said. How was Europe? Mom, please. I got a letter saying I have to move out in 30 days. It must be some mistake. Can you help me figure it out? An eviction letter? From whom? From a company I've never heard of. Hold on, Robert Investments, Inc. Does that mean anything to you? Robert named the company after himself. I could almost hear him chuckle. No, honey, never heard of it. Are you sure it's legit? That's what I need to find out. Mom, I need help. Edward left me. He ran off with someone else. I came back to this. I don't know what to do. There it was. Edward had abandoned ship, probably the moment the money ran dry or when he realized the legal tide was turning. I'm sorry, I said. Where are you? At the apartment. For now. Mom, can I come over? I have no one else. The irony was too perfect. After tossing me aside, she now reached for me when the floor gave way under her. Of course, I said gently. Come anytime. An hour later, she stood at my door. She looked wrecked. Thinner, dark crescents under her eyes, expensive clothes wrinkled, hair undone. For a moment, she seemed ready to hug me, then stopped herself. Come in, I said softly. Coffee? Yes, please. We sat where I'd read Robert's letter weeks earlier. She looked small in that chair, like she had when she brought me elementary school dramas to solve. Mom, I'm so sorry for how I left. I was cruel. It's behind us, I said calmly. No, it isn't. I said awful things. And now her voice snapped in two. Now I have no one. What happened with Edward? He ran off with a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris. There was never any business deal. He lied to get out from under his debts and used the money from your house to play rich. All the debts? So many. He took out loans for years, some using our apartment as collateral. But it turns out it wasn't his to leverage. And the worst part? He forged my signature on several loans. I had no idea. Can you prove you didn't authorize it? I don't know. The banks say I'm liable because I'm his wife. And now this eviction. What are you going to do? I don't know. I was going to ask if I could stay here for a while. Just until I find work and a cheap place. The question I had been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own life, she wanted a lifeline. This will always be your home, I told her. She stared at me, shocked. Really? After everything? You're my daughter. This time she did hug me, a desperate cling like someone drowning. I hugged back, but this time there was strategy in my arms. Thank you, Mom. I'll get a job, I swear. I won't be a burden. Rest first, I said. We'll figure it out. She left to gather a few things. I stood in the kitchen, thinking how easily the plan had fallen into place. She'd come back, broken, desperate, and blissfully unaware of the full truth. To her, I was still the discarded widow with nothing. This was only phase 1. I'd let her settle, feel safe, trust that she had a soft place to land. Then, when her heart was open, she'd learn the difference between poverty by choice and poverty by consequence. Angela moved in the very next day. 2 suitcases and the cardboard box. That was all that remained of the life she'd curated with Edward. I watched her unpack in her old bedroom, the teenage posters long gone, the sunlight still falling in the same square on the floor. Every movement spoke of swallowed pride. Mom, I found this at the apartment, she said, holding up a manila envelope. It was with Edward's things. It has your name on it. My heart hopped, but my face stayed calm. My name? She handed it over. Robert's handwriting curled across the front. This one was slimmer than the first envelope, the paper newer. I slid a finger under the flap. Inside, a brief note and a small key. Antonia, if you've already opened the main envelope and you're reading this now, it means our daughter is in a hard season. This key is for a safe deposit box at the Central Bank, downtown branch. Box 247. Inside is something to help you help her. Use it wisely. With all my love, Robert. Angela read over my shoulder, breath catching. A safe deposit box? Dad had one? I had no idea. Neither did I lied gently. Should we go see what's in it? We should go today, she said, urgency bleeding through. Please, we'll go tomorrow morning, I said, steady, after a good night's sleep. That evening, we ate together for the first time in months. She cooked oversalted chicken and watery rice, but I tasted effort and apology in every bite. Between sips of water, she told me the rest. Edward lied about everything, she said. There was no deal in Europe. He just wanted to run. The debts are over 100,000, maybe more. He took out loans with the apartment as collateral, but the apartment isn't even his. And he forged my signature on some of the paperwork. How? I asked. When we married, I signed a few forms for the bank. He must have kept my info and doctored signatures. The banks say I'm responsible anyway because we're married. And Edward? Gone. His phone's off. Emails bounce. It's like he vanished. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm sorry. She blinked back tears. I thought he loved me. I thought we were building a life. Turns out I was a staircase he climbs to get somewhere else. The next morning at the bank, a clerk checked my ID and escorted us to the cavern of quiet safety boxes. Box 247 opened with a soft metallic click. Inside, nestled in pale cloth, was a small trove of jewelry. Rings, bracelets, necklaces, earrings. Some pieces I recognized from Robert's mother. Others I'd never seen. There was a note listing origins and approximate values. Angela let out a soft sound. Mom, this is worth a lot. That emerald, the pearls. Robert's list put the total around $200,000. Significant, but a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of what he'd left me. Still, it felt like finding sunlight in a dark room. What should we do? She asked. I don't know, I said, eyes on the pieces that had seen family holidays and anniversaries. They're heirlooms. Mom, we could sell some. You could get the beach house back. I could start paying off the worst debts. Are you sure you want to use your father's legacy to clean up Edward's mess? What choice do I have? If I don't pay something now, they'll start seizing things. I can't get hired with a stack of legal claims over my head. We took the jewelry home. Angela spread everything out on the kitchen table, pairing sentiment with numbers, weighing beauty against necessity. Watching her tally a childhood in gemstones and scrap paper hurt in a way I can't name. That afternoon, my phone rang. Mr. Peterson. Mrs. Brooks, I've got an overview of Edward's situation. It's worse than anticipated. Over $200,000 across multiple banks and private lenders. We also found clear evidence of forged signatures on several loans. Meaning your daughter can likely be extricated if we can prove fraud and coercion, but it won't be quick or cheap. Specialists, filings, international coordination. I'd estimate $50,000 in legal fees, possibly more.
Start immediately, I said, and keep it between us.
You'll cover it?
I will. Do not mention my involvement to Angela until everything is finalized. It could take 3 to 4 weeks. Then let's not lose a day. When I hung up, Angela glanced over.
Who was that?
A woman looking for Mrs. Davis from the corner, I said lightly. Wrong number. Lying came easier than I expected. The double life fit me like an old coat. Worn, familiar, practical. The next days fell into a pattern. Mornings, Angela pored over listings and made calls, then trudged to interviews. Afternoons, she circled back with rejections. They say they can't hire someone with pending legal issues, she said, knuckles white around a folder. One offered a night shift cleaning offices. Will you take it? I need to. It's money, and it won't interfere with interviews during the day. That first night, she returned bone-tired, feet swollen, shoulders drooped, but her eyes held a new steadiness. There's a woman there, Mrs. Johnson. She's 60. Been cleaning 20 years. Her husband left her with 3 little kids. She told me it's not the job she wanted, but it gave her dignity. She sounds wise. She is. She told me there are 2 kinds of people in that line of work. People who never got a fair chance and people who wrecked the chances they did get. She asked me which one I was. What did you tell her? The truth. I had every advantage, parents who loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and I threw it away on a man who lied. She laughed and said, "Well, at least you know how you got here. That puts you ahead of most." The following morning, Angela visited a few jewelers, armed with research and a tight jaw. By evening, she laid out receipts and a stack of bills on the table. $180,000, she said. Less than the estimates, but enough to keep the wolves from the door. I'm going to prioritize the debts tied to collateral. The bank advisor said those are the ones that can trigger immediate seizures. Are you sure? I asked softly. Once the jewelry's gone, it's gone. I know, she said, voice raw, but letting other people clean up my mess would be worse. I watched her sort payments, call creditors, and negotiate. The woman who once sold a life's worth of memories without blinking was now itemizing every dollar like it was oxygen. That night, Mr. Peterson called again. We located Edward. He's in Paris, and he's attempting to secure residency through a sham marriage with the young woman your daughter mentioned. I kept my voice even. A fraudulent marriage. Yes. More importantly, we've secured a proof he intended to defraud and flee. That strengthens the argument to release your daughter from liability. I moved forward. Quietly. It'll be about 3 weeks. Good. I hung up. Angela emerged from her room with red eyes and damp cheeks. I was thinking about Dad, she said, settling across from me, about how ashamed he'd be if he could see what I did. Your father loved you. He would understand. He taught me responsibility and respect for family. I did the opposite. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I turned history into cash. I broke everything he built. I could have told her I seen the warnings in Edward from the beginning. I could have said I tried to tell you, but that would have been about me, not about who she was becoming. People make mistakes, I said. It's what we do afterward that matters. How do I fix this? She whispered. How do I even start? That question finally was the opening I'd been waiting for. Over the next week, she settled into a punishing routine. Daytime interviews, night shifts, a budget so strict it squeaked. She learned how to stretch a grocery run and how to say no to small comforts. She refused to let me pay for her bus pass. I got myself into this, she said. I'll get myself out. One evening, she came home with the bandage blister and a quiet pride. Mrs. Johnson taught me how to clean baseboards without wrecking my back, she said. Silly as it sounds, getting better at something, even this, feels good. It's not silly, I said. It's skill. She nodded, then squared her shoulders. Mom, I also want to contribute here. Food, utilities, whatever you let me pay. You don't have to. I do. I need to live like an adult, not a child who expects you to rescue her. I watched her head to bed with a warm ache in my chest. Heartbreak and pride make strange companions. My daughter was learning the hardest lesson of her life, and she was meeting it head on. A few evenings later, Aurora knocked and slipped into my kitchen, settling at the table with her usual mix of curiosity and concern. Antonia, did you know she'd come back like this? When she left, she was so sure of herself. borderline smug. Now she looks humbled. Life turns fast, I said. She talks to you differently, Aurora murmured. Not bossy, not dismissive, grateful. I just smiled. People change when they have to. The days that followed carved Angela into someone new. She learned to make coffee stretch and meals multiply. She ironed a secondhand blouse for interviews and walked to save bus fare. She thanked me for small things she once ignored. Fresh towels, a quiet room, a light left on in the hall. Late one afternoon, my phone rang. Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Brooks, I have excellent news. We've compiled enough evidence to petition for your daughter's release from liability. Between the forged signatures, the fraudulent intent, and Edward's attempt to flee, we have a strong case. We've also finalized control transfers on your properties. Everything is where it should be. I exhaled. It's time. Shall I schedule a meeting? Yes. Friday morning. I told Angela I'd set up an appointment with a lawyer who might be able to help. She stared at the floor. Mom, I can't afford an attorney. Let's just hear him out, I said. Friday, she chose her neatest outfit, now a little loose on her, combed her hair, and perched on the edge of Mr. Peterson's leather chair like a student waiting for a grade. He greeted us warmly and passed her a thick folder. Please review these, he said. She flipped through the pages, eyes racing, then slowing. This says Edward forged my signature, that there's proof of fraud, that I'm not responsible for the loans. That is correct, Mr. Peterson said. We've built a case to remove you from liability. Her voice shook. Who paid for this? Mr. Peterson glanced at me. I nodded. I did, I said. And there's more you need to see. He set a second folder on the desk. Deeds, corporate filings, bank statements, certificates. Angela's breath caught as she read, confusion melting into shock, then dawning comprehension. Mom, she whispered, this says you own the building where I lived? Yes. And these other properties, the motel, the condo downtown, shares in 3 companies, accounts I've never heard of. Yes. And the beach house sale was unlawful. It's already back in my name. She looked up at me as if she were seeing me for the first time. How long have you known? Since the day you called me from the doctor's office. And when I came home, when I cried at your table, when I told you I had no one, you knew all of this? I did. She set the papers down carefully, like they might break. Why did you let me fall apart when you could have fixed everything in a single phone call? Because what was broken wasn't only paperwork. You didn't just sell a house and a truck. You tossed away respect. You treated me like a burden. You mistook love for convenience. Money can't fix that. Only learning can. Tears slid down her cheeks. Not the frantic, frightened tears of the past weeks, but something deeper. I left you when you needed me most. Yes. I talked to you like you didn't matter. Yes. And you still saved me. Yes, I said. But not by handing you a check so you could repeat the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you reach the bottom and discover your own footing. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat gently. Ms. Brooks, your mother has covered all legal costs. The petitions are filed. You will be released from Edward's debts. The fraudulent sale of the beach house has been undone. You are no longer under threat. Angela turned to me, eyes shining. And the job? You can quit if you want, I said. But I hope you don't. Why? Because it's teaching you something money never will. The worth of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, and the weight of each dollar earned. She let out a trembling laugh, half sob, half relief. Do you forgive me? I forgave you a long time ago. The real question is whether you can forgive yourself. I don't know, she whispered. Not yet, but I want to be the kind of woman who deserves it. Mr. Peterson stepped out to give us a few minutes. We sat in quiet, side by side, breathing the same careful air. When we finally rose and walked out into the bright morning, it felt like stepping into a different life, one we were both choosing. The weeks after that meeting were about rebuilding, but not the way Angela first imagined. Even knowing the legal storm had passed, she chose to keep her night job. I need to finish what I started, she said one evening, lacing up worn sneakers. I can't just snap back to comfortable and pretend none of it happened. Are you sure? I asked. You don't have to punish yourself. It's not punishment, she said. It's a reminder. She also drew a hard line at home. I'm staying, she told me, but not as the daughter who ran home to be rescued. I'm here as a grown woman sharing a household with another grown woman. I'm going to pay my share. Groceries, utilities, whatever you let me contribute. You don't need to. I do, she said simply. I need our relationship to mean something different now. A few nights later, she added, almost shyly, I want to go back to school. Not tomorrow. Step by step. Social work. I want to help women who are where I was. Yes, I said, my throat tight with a kind of fierce pride. That sounds exactly right. Word traveled fast in our neighborhood. One Friday, Aurora arrived with gossip hanging off her like a shawl. Antonia, there are whispers you're not as broke as everyone thought. People saw Angela leaving a fancy law office downtown. Then she was at the bank paying off debts, and folks say you somehow got the beach house back. I poured tea and took a breath. Robert laughed more than anyone knew. I said at last, much more. How much more? She asked, eyes wide. Enough that money won't be a problem. Not for me, not for Angela. Aurora studied my face, then exhaled. So you let everyone believe you had nothing. I needed Angela to learn something she wouldn't learn any other way. Aurora arched an eyebrow. Antonia, that's both brilliant and awful. I know. Every day, I replied. I watched her cry. I watched her go to work bone tired. But if I'd handed her a check at the first tier, what would she have learned? That there's always a soft landing. That love is a safety net, not a responsibility. Aurora's gaze softened. Do you think she's learned it? Look at her, I said. She knows she could quit that job any time, and she won't. She could move out to someplace shiny, and she's chosen to stay. And she's using her own money to help a coworker cover daycare. She is? Aurora asked, surprised. She didn't tell me, I said. I found the receipt in her bag. Cash for a week of childcare. She shrugged and said, Mrs. Johnson is carrying more than I am. Aurora smiled. That's not the Angela who left. No, I said, it isn't. That night, when Angela came home from her shift, she kicked off her shoes and sank into a chair. Mom, Mrs. Johnson asked me today if I'm the daughter of the rich lady on the north side. And what did you say? I said yes, she said, half grinning. Then she asked why I'm still mopping floors. What did you tell her? That I need to prove to myself I can stand up on my own 2 feet. She laughed and said, honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mama taught you the real kind. She is very wise, I said. She is, Angela agreed. And she made me see it's not about how much money you have. It's about how you treat it and people with respect. The next stretch of weeks settled into a steady rhythm. Work, study, and small acts of repair. Even knowing the legal storms had cleared, Angela stuck with her night shift. She trimmed expenses, cooked simple meals, and tucked away a little from each paycheck. The brittle, frantic edge had left her voice. What remained was resolve. One evening, she came home, set her bag down, and spoke with a kind of calm certainty. Mom, I'm going to keep living here, but not as a child crashing back into her old room. I want this to be a household run by 2 adults. I'll contribute to bills and groceries, and I'm applying to finish my degree. After that, I want to go on to social work. I nodded, swallowing a swell of pride. Step by step, I said. Step by step, she echoed. 6 months later, our life had found a shape that fit us both. Quiet, purposeful, surprisingly joyful. Angela completed her coursework with excellent marks, and I put some of Robert's resources to work establishing a foundation focused on women facing domestic abuse and financial abandonment. We designed programs for safe housing, legal support, and emergency grants. Angela helped on weekends, then took a job with the city to gain practical experience. One morning, she came into the kitchen with an envelope. Mom, the university wrote back, she said, eyes bright. I got into the master's program. I hugged her. Of course you did. She pulled back, serious. I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. It'll be tied on my salary, but I need to do this myself. Are you certain? We could easily... I know, she said gently, but this is part of who I am now. That Friday, Aurora came by for tea, as she had most weeks. She sat across from me, studying my face. I have to confess something, she said. At first, I thought you were cruel for letting Angela struggle. And now? I asked. Now, I think you're the wisest mother I've ever met, she said simply. Look at her. It was true. The woman reading at our dining table wasn't the person who'd flown off to Europe months earlier. This Angela moved with a quiet self-possession that didn't come from nice things or borrowed status. It came from getting knocked flat and learning how to stand again.
Did you know, Aurora added, I saw her at the market yesterday, buying vegetables for a family she's working with. When I asked why she wasn't using the agency budget, she said some needs don't fit cleanly into a ledger. That night, Angela and I ate on the porch, our new ritual. We shared grilled chicken and a simple salad, the evening warm and soft around us. Mom, she said, setting down her fork, I got a strange letter today. I felt my muscles tighten. From whom? From Edward. From a prison in France. He was convicted for the sham marriage. He says he's sorry, wants my forgiveness. How do you feel? I asked. She stared into the early dusk for a long moment. Honestly, nothing. No anger, no sadness, no desire to answer. It's like that version of me, the one who believed him, belongs to another lifetime. Will you write back? No, she said, not out of hate. There's just nothing to say. Do you resent him? I asked, testing the air. She shook her head. Weirdly, no. He did me a favor without meaning to. If he hadn't betrayed me, I wouldn't have hit bottom. And if I hadn't hit bottom, I wouldn't have learned what really matters. We sat quietly, listening to the hum of crickets in the yard. Then she spoke again, voice steady. You taught me something I didn't know love could do, she said. Real love doesn't just tell you what you want to hear. It teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts.
I looked up at the sky, where Robert used to say the souls of the well-lived watched over us. I'd promised him I would take care of our daughter. For the first time since he died, I felt like I had done it in the way he would have wanted, not by smoothing every bump, but by helping her find her own balance. On Sunday, we planned a visit we'd been putting off. Are you ready? I asked as we climbed into the truck. I think so, Angela said softly. We drove in companionable silence toward the coast, the road unspooling like a familiar song. At the curb, she hesitated before getting out, just looking. It looks exactly the same, she murmured. Some things do. Others change. I'm not the same person who sold this place, she whispered. We stepped onto the porch Robert had built with his own hands. Angela moved through the rooms, touching the backs of chairs, pausing at photos, absorbing the weight of what the house held. Mom, she said finally, sitting on the sofa where our father used to read, I want to apologize, not just for selling it, for treating decades of her life as if they were just numbers, for acting like this was a transaction. It's forgiven, I said. She looked around the room, eyes shining. When I sold it, I felt nothing. It was just another property. Being here now, I can feel Dad everywhere, hear his laugh, smell the coffee he made in the mornings, picture his glasses on this table. He's here. He always has been. I know. And I think he's proud of you. We spent the day cleaning, cooking, tightening screws and straightening frames. Small acts that felt like weaving our old life back into the present. As the sun slipped down, we sat on the porch, watching the ocean collect the last light. Mom, she said, turning to me, I have an idea. She took a breath, eyes on the horizon. Let's turn this place into a short-term refuge for women leaving abusive situations, she said. A safe stop while they put their lives back together. My chest ached in the best way. I think that's a beautiful idea, I said. We can fund it through the foundation. You can coordinate the program through your work. She hesitated. Are you sure you want to offer up our family haven like that? The best sanctuaries are the ones we share, I said. Your father always believed a house isn't truly a home until its doors open to people who need kindness. She smiled through wet eyes. He did always pull up an extra chair. We spent the afternoon making notes at the kitchen table. What kinds of stays we'd allow, how to keep it safe and private, the partners we'd need to bring in. It felt like we were stitching purpose into the walls. We drove back that night under a sky scattered with stars. We had a new project, yes, but also a new foundation under our relationship. We weren't just mother and daughter by habit anymore. We were two women choosing one another, building something real with open eyes. Before bed, I stepped out onto the porch and looked up, speaking to the night the way I had so many times since the funeral. I did it, my love. Our girl understands what matters. For the first time since he left me at that breakfast table, I felt an answer. Quiet and sure, like his hand at the small of my back. You always could, Antonia. You both were stronger than you knew. In the end, what came to us wasn't revenge dressed up as justice. It was instruction, not punishment, but change. And what we gained was worth more than any portfolio entry or deed. We gained a bond built on truth, a relationship laid on bedrock that no storm could uproot. If this story spoke to you, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me where you're listening from in the comments. I'd love to connect. If you enjoyed it and want to support more stories like this, consider sending us super thanks. It helps me keep bringing you new life tales. You'll find 2 more hand-picked stories waiting for you on screen, and there's a lot more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one. With love and respect.